Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the zoo. The minion with me this evening is Adam.
Hello.
And as it is once again a Friday, of course, I'm the keeper for the evening, Sanguine. How are you doing tonight, Adam?
I'm doing all right. Uh, Give me 1 second. Oh, no, never mind.
Hmm?
No, I'm doing all right. It's Friday. This
Mm-hmm.
week went by kind of fast, to be
Ah,
honest.
nice.
Yeah. Um,
Or at
the
least hopefully nice, and it isn't that it went by fairly fast because you were just getting your shit pushed in the entire time, so you didn't have a chance to really recognize the passage of time. It was just
well,
going from one fire to another, putting it out.
well, no, I mean I can't even say that because at work, um, it's kind of slowing down. It
Mm-hmm.
usually does around this time of year. Um, so we've been kind of you know getting things done, but at a pace. And
Mm-hmm.
uh, and today we didn't. Our supervisor had vacation, um, and apparently everybody else decided to not come in, so it was just three people in the room.
Oh,
Uh,
okay.
yeah, uh, and so yeah, I mean today was just. Bleh. I gotta say this. I saw this movie because when the supervisor's not there, it's a hey, let's pop on a movie. Um,
Mm-hmm.
oh, and we were worried about who was going to do the Gamma meeting in the morning.
Mm-hmm.
We do the meeting stuff, and we were because it was just two of us in the morning before another guy came in later on, uh,
Mm-hmm.
and we were like, oh shit, who's going to do it? And luckily, they didn't trust us with it, so we didn't have to do the meeting. But I was
Nice.
gonna. Yeah, because there's the second part where it's like here's what we did, and then the second part is, um, you know action list or whatever, and hey, we need more dongles, we need more cables of this sort, we need different.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I was telling my coworker, I was like, dude, I'm gonna be like, yo, we need some anime waifu mouse pads because our wrists are really hurting,
Yeah,
and
you need the ergonomic support of their massive titties.
yeah, we need that soft, cushiony, uh, comfort while we're working. And
Yep.
we need a
Though
bunch
it
of them.
depends on which sort of anime mouse pad you get. You either get the titty rest or you get the ass rest. It depends on the
Oh,
girl.
okay. Well, let's be fair then. Let's do 5 and 5 uh,
Yeah.
for each person. And
That way the ass men can get the ass and the tit men can get tits. Yeah,
yeah,
makes perfect sense.
I mean, I think it's fair, and I thought it was going to be a good thing to bring up at the meeting, but uh, apparently, apparently, uh, they didn't trust us. So we were muted out of the meeting, and somebody else, I think somebody from Arizona, did our numbers. Um,
Ah.
yeah. um, but oh, I gotta say, I saw a movie, and this will be the final thing, and then I'll shut up and let you go. But um,
Mm-hmm.
saw this movie uh, called Terror Night, I think. Um, and the coworker who brought it up, he's like, "Oh yeah, it's like a horror movie, but with Santa Claus." I'm like, "Oh, okay." So I'm thinking Santa Claus goes crazy and starts killing people, and it opens up like that, like it's Santa
See,
Claus in a wait, what?
I was thinking Holy or Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Yeah, something like that, where it was like oh shit, and it opened like that, where it was like Santa in a bar, and he's just sitting there. He's like, these little fucking pissants, they don't care about nothing. They're all
Mm-hmm.
worthless. Whatever. And he leaves, and he goes off. flies off. But here's the premise: it's a rich family who has a lot of money in a super crazy vault.
Mm-hmm.
There's a team of people who want to break into this vault and get the money. Um, and it's led by John Leguizamo, which I was sitting there working on these laptops, and I'm like listening to this dude talk. I'm like, that sounds like John Leguizamo. That can't be John Leguizamo. And I go and look at the fucking monitor, and I'm like, oh shit, it is John. But
Yep.
um, but Santa's delivering presents, and then he gets caught up. One of the lackeys spots Santa Claus delivering presents, and they get in a fight. And then all of a sudden, Santa is now stuck in this house filled with these lackeys, and it's Die Hard but Santa.
So it's Die Hard, Home Alone, Santa.
No, no,
Okay.
no! Home Alone, dude. The first part of the movie is the son of the rich mom or parent or whatever. He's married to a lady, and they have a kid, and the kid's like, "Hey, um, fucking, we were watching Home Alone all weekend or something like that." So, I think it's a really great movie, and yeah, she brings it up. Okay, they're all being held hostage, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the little girl goes and runs away, and she's like, "No, I'm talking to." I don't know how she got the walkie-talkie. I didn't, because I'm not watching it
Mm-hmm.
actively. I'm just kind of listening to it. Um, she gets a walkie-talkie. She's talking to Santa. Santa kills the dude who spotted him, and Santa tells her like, "Oh yeah, I used to be a Viking warrior, and I had a hammer called Skull Crusher, which looked like a sledgehammer." And,
Nice.
and yeah, I'm sitting there like, wait, what? And he's like healing himself, but it's like he has some magic. He can pull things out of his sack and shoot through a chimney. Um,
Mm-hmm.
but apparently he can still get hurt. Uh, and so he's sneaking around. He finds, he runs into it. There's this crazy fight where he runs across this dude and they're fighting, and he stabs the dude in the eye with a fucking chimney or the Christmas tree star,
Nice.
and the dude stands up and he's like ah, and he starts stomping around and but no, the crazy thing, and then yeah, Home Alone kicks in, and um, Santa Claus is like, okay, I need time to heal up. Are you okay? And she's like, yeah, I'm gonna plant some traps. And so she fucking plants traps, but dude, these are some of the most brutal fucking things. I was like,
So
holy
proper
shit,
Home Alone, where you're going, these guys would have died like 12 times over.
dude. Yeah, dude, this dude took a fucking. Okay, so he goes to pull the staircase out to the attic, and he goes to steps, and then he sees a nail in the middle of one,
Mm-hmm.
and he calls out to the girl. He's like, you little brat, I would have, it's easier if you set the traps where we don't see them. And he goes and steps over it, but then he steps on the next step, and it falls out, and he falls right, and the nail goes through his lower jaw, right?
Yep.
And he's sitting there like ah, and the person who's with him, um, she's like, oh fuck it, we'll get him. And she goes up, and she gets up there, and there's a contraption where all these bowling balls are falling on this trampoline and just like pounding at this lady. And eventually she gets up and she diverts one of the bowling balls, and one of the bowling balls falls on the dude. And then it's like all these things are, it's like, dude, what the are you?
That would have killed them. That would have killed them.
Yeah,
That would have killed them.
but hold on, it gets better, because apparently they had this group that was hijacking and breaking into the safe. They had
Mm-hmm.
a backup for some reason, where it was a
Mm-hmm.
bunch of dudes in white, because it was winter, so they had white camouflage outfits and snowmobiles, and they're all heavily armed, ex militia people, right?
See, I was very worried for a moment there when you started out, they're all wearing white. I was going to say, I swear to God, if the clan is their backup.
And the clan is a backup. And they have the cross ready to burn.
In order to keep themselves warm, they're just burning crosses out on the
Yeah.
lawn.
They're going to be singing visuals. but no, yeah, some like ex-military people are all lined up, and they go out there and they're like, oh yeah, we see him, and Santa Claus is on the roof, and they start shooting at him with fucking belt-fed machine guns. It's crazy. um and then yeah, so then it gets to a point where Santa finds a sledgehammer, and uh he starts remembering his past, and then all of a sudden he's hiding out in the barn, and all these army guys come in, and it's just him fucking laying waste to people with the sledgehammer. It is the craziest thing I've ever fucking seen, dude.
That is glorious.
I was like, what the fuck is going on? And the whole time too, because there was a point where the dad was like, yeah, I took the money, because they broke into the safe, and they're like, where's the money? And he's like, I took it, because blah blah blah, whatever. And the little girl's like, no, Santa Claus is gonna beat you guys, and the dad's like, no, Santa Claus is not real. And so there's points where she's like, Santa, are you real? And she's like, yeah, of course, but people don't believe me or some shit. And he has like this weird magic list that he can look at. Dude, it was a fucking weird movie. I sat there, I'm like, dude, what the hell did you put on? You're not allowed
Part
to.
of me was really hoping that at the very end of this, it turns out that Santa Claus was just a figment of this girl's imagination as she had a psychotic break and just murdered everyone.
That would have been awesome. No, what he pretty much he saves the day, and then he just rides off, and he does his thing. He's like, we got some fucking work to do, let's go. It's like, what the fuck?
That is glorious.
Yeah, I think it's called Terrible Night or something like that.
I'll have to find that because now I need to watch it. It sounds amazing.
Like I said, I thought it was gonna be Santa Claus being like a serial killer or something like that, but it turned into him just like being at the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah.
And now Santa has to...
It turned into Santa is Rambo in John McClane and Kevin McAllister's boots.
Yep. Well, no, because the little girl's the Kevin McAllister, where she has all these traps and shit.
True. So it's Rambo mixed with
teams up with Kevin McAllister.
John McClane teams up with Kevin McAllister to defend a home on Christmas.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Violent Night.
This sounds like the perfect Christmas movie, other than Die Hard itself.
Or Gremlins.
True.
That's a good Christmas movie. But yeah, no, yeah. Yeah, when the supervisor's not there, I hope we like to watch movies and stuff. And strangely enough, real quick, because after that he put on, can't remember what he put on, some random movie, and then after that it was he put on Space Jam,
Nice,
the good one, and and after that it randomly went straight to Thundercats, the good animated series.
Nice, a classic,
right? And I think it was Hulu that he put on. And then after that, he's like, "Oh, whoa! Why did it do this randomly?" Okay, and he put on Tropic Thunder, and I fucking love that movie. And the funny thing was, because it was like there was barely anybody there, so every time somebody came into the tech area, they just stop and be like, "Oh, yo, I love this part. This part is awesome."
nice.
But right after Tropic Thunder, right again, Thundercats. Someone was telling us to watch Thundercats. So
yeah, everyone should be telling you to watch Thundercats. Thundercats is a classic, and it's a classic for a reason.
Well, it wasn't the original. It was the what 2005.
Oh, the um, more recent but good remake.
Yes, yes, not the one that was touched by uh, Silent Bob.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, that sounds like a pretty fucking good day.
Yeah. So how was your day, sir? Hey, what did you cook for dinner?
My day was rather good. I went did my plasma donation early on, then
Ooh,
bought some more booze, got some things that I needed for my house and grocery wise, and then zonked out, woke up, started making some absolutely delicious schnitzel. And I did that with roast broccoli as well as oven chips or oven fries, however you want to refer to them,
oh,
with a mustard sauce done with them.
what are oven fries?
Oven fries, they're fries that you make in the oven.
Oh,
So you take a potato. I did wedges, but you can cut them into whatever shape you want. And then you roast them up in the oven so that they get crispy on the outside, fluffy on the inside.
do you put do you put a seasoning on your fries?
I did for these, yes.
What do you put in your seasoning?
This was, of course, salt. Then it was a spice blend that included paprika and uh, garlic, a couple different types of garlic, and trying to think what else I threw into it. But it was a paprika, a bit of um, chili powder, garlic, and a couple other things. I can't remember off the top of my head what else I threw in at the moment, but it was really good. Gave the fries a nice flavor that added a little bit of spice to the dish, which was definitely needed because roast broccoli, while delicious, doesn't have any spice. The schnitzel, I didn't spice the schnitzel heavily. It was garlic, smoked garlic. Uh, and that was, lemon zest. That was what was in the schnitzel. Squeeze some lemon over top of all of it. And then I had the creamy mustard sauce that I drizzled over top, which gave that nice fattiness as well as a little bit of heat from the mustard because I used a good spicy brown. But most of the heat came from the seasoning that I did on the fries.
Ooh,
And then with that, I had a smoke beer.
smoke what?
A smoke beer. It's a German style of beer. It takes a Marzen beer, then it smokes, or rather, takes the malt that they're going to use to make a Marzen, but before they make the Marzen, they smoke the malt over, I believe it's beechwood. Let me quickly double check. Yes, it is beechwood. So you get this beechwood smoked malt that is then brewed into beer. So you get that nice smokiness in it, as well as just a very pleasant Marzen, which is one of the not really dark, but kind of medium dark German beers. I recommend if you're able to find it's called Schlenkerla. If you're able to find a Schlenkerla, which is the smoke beer, I recommend giving it a go.
Yeah, I just might.
Really
Um,
pleasant. I enjoy them, especially with that nice bit of pork fried up the way that it was, the broccoli, the French or the Yeah, French fries or oven chips, oven fries, however you want to refer to them. And then that smoke beer. It had a really nice balance to the entire meal. And Rotten Corpse chimed in that Kevin Smith can do good work, but he let his success go to his head and keeps trying to pander to people who won't watch his stuff to begin with. Which I would say is rather fair assessment of him. Because there was a fair bit of his work that is really damn good. But at a certain point, he just started producing shit.
Kevin Smith.
Yep.
Yeah. I made that mistake. I forgot that the Thundercats reboot was the Cal Arts goofy looking shit.
Yep.
He-Man was done by Kevin Smith.
Yep.
The remake, and He-Man had a decent remake as well.
I'm
I
trying
think
to remember
around the
when
same
that
time.
one came out.
Yeah, because I think that one showed how like Skeletor was like a magician, and then he got burned or something like that.
Okay.
Like, cause yeah, and I was watching this Thundercats one, and I was like, I vaguely remember it, but I do remember, this being a thing. We had good things at a time, people.
Yeah.
There was a time. Do you remember?
I've talked about the 90s run of superhero cartoons. I don't know how many fucking times because all of them were really good. The animated adventures of Batman, same with Superman, Spider-Man, all those early to mid 90s superhero cartoons were really fucking good. And they got the superheroes better than anyone has in a good while.
Yeah.
Which is, again, one of the things that annoys the hell out of me when it comes to Superman. I get the people that say Superman's boring because in a bunch of his iterations, he absolutely is. The cartoon run of it did an amazing job making him interesting because they didn't just go, oh, how will Superman ever defeat this villain? No, it was this situation has put Superman in a sticky situation morally.
Which one are you talking about? The Bruce Timm or the Fletchers?
Well, Fletcher's did it, but then the what was it? The new animated
The Warner
adventures?
Brothers?
Yeah, when it came out. So there was the old ones, which were the Fletchers.
Yeah.
Then there was the new animated adventures, which were in like the late 80s through mid 90s.
Well, okay, hold on, because there was Superman cartoons also from the 70s, but I guess that would be more like the Super Friends and shit like that.
Yeah.
Or the Justice League.
Yeah, the Justice League was good. Especially when they had their what would be considered now racist superheroes of the week.
Like,
I
okay.
fucking love those.
Dude, hold on. Because I was just thinking, yeah, wasn't there a Native American?
Apache Chief.
Apache
Inu Nukchuk.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had what nowadays would be considered the racist superhero of the week because it would change out almost on a weekly basis. Sometimes it was Apache Chief, just who had the ability to become ridiculously tall. That was his superpower. That was his only superpower. He could become large. He couldn't shrink down, from what I remember. He could just become larger. And then there was Black Thunder. I think it was Black Thunder was one of the ones that they had. And then there was a Mexican one that I can't even remember the name of,
I can't. I just remember. I think there was see. In terms of the Justice League, I'm like, it's been so long since I've watched a lot of these. At least the early '70 ones, like the Justice League and Super Friend type stuff.
Hmm.
Um, and I'm mixing up whether or not there was an Asian character who was like a. But I think I'm mixing that up with there's an X-Men character who was like that. Oh shit, caps. Sorry, man, I'm being racist.
Like I said, there was the racist superhero of the week when it came to the old Justice League, and I'm trying to remember all of them. I remember three of them. I can't remember one of the names, but there was Apache Chief. Like I said, I think it was Black Thunder was one of them. And then there was one that was a Hispanic dude, where he was like a Mexican pistolero, and that was his character.
A pistolero? What the hell is a pistolero?
Mexican duelist,
Oh shit.
someone who uses pistols. Yeah, it's
They really went all out for that one.
oh, it was Black Vulcan. That was the name of it. El Dorado was the pistolero.
El Dorado.
There was Samurai was the Japanese one that you were thinking.
No, this is a Chinese dude, and I think he had lightning or something like that, or like typhoons or something like that. But like I said,
Okay,
I
my
could
bad.
be mixing it with X-Men because I'm pretty sure they had a fucking character like that too.
Yeah, you're
Who knows?
probably mixing it with X-Men for the Chinese one because the one that was the Asian representation in the racist hero of the week was Samurai.
Oh shit, Sam R.I.
Samurai, his real name, Toshio Edo. But yeah, he was a superpower samurai. It's I miss back when they would do shit like that. Because no one looked at those and went, man, that's racist. Everyone just went, oh, cool, it's a new hero. And they'll just swap them out. Sometimes it would be Black Vulcan, sometimes Apache Chief, sometimes Samurai, sometimes Eldorado. Oh no, Eldorado wasn't the Pistolero. Eldorado was the Luchador.
Hold on, didn't Marvel have a character called Aztec?
Let's check.
Or DC? I don't know, man. No, that's the thing. It's when you're talking about comic book creation, you're talking about people pulling things out of their ass and just trying to make it go somewhere. Racist or not.
Yeah,
It's they're just creating a character.
and it was DC Comics had Aztec.
Oh, DC. Okay, well, staying with DC.
Yeah, DC had Aztec, who was the champion of Quetzalcoatl.
Yeah.
See, the thing is that, like I said, this shit's now considered racist. I don't think that it should be considered racist. I think that it's fucking awesome. Just like how we have all the heroes based off of various European mythology and lore.
Hmm.
What the fuck's the problem with having them based off of other mythologies and lore?
Well, that's why I'd always go with if we're gonna have this discussion, talk to the peoples of whom you'd oh, this is offending them. Okay, well, let's talk to them and see what they think of it, because and I'll always point to this. When Mario Odyssey came out and it found out that you can dress him up in a poncho and a sombrero and he can play with a skeleton luchador band, and all the fucking weirdos on the internet were like, "Oh my god, that's so racist! How can you do this?" And what did the Mexicans say? This is fucking awesome.
Yeah,
It's like yes, we we like seeing Mario dressed in a poncho with a sombrero playing fucking guitar
yeah.
because
See,
it is a Japanese created Italian character. Like
yeah,
it's absurd to fucking be that fucking upset about it.
it's kind of like the meme that I absolutely love of "Be the American Japan knows you can be." And it's just all the American characters from different animes, different Japanese video games, where it's like Senator Armstrong from Metal Gear, who's just a gloriously ridiculous meme of a character. I fucking love Senator Armstrong. And, damn it, what was the American in Yu-Gi-Oh? But there's this big ass ripped American in Yu-Gi-Oh. Every American character in a Japanese bit of media is absolutely glorious in the most stereotypical way, and that's what makes them amazing. To me, it always comes down to if your character is designed to be insulting to the group, then yeah, your character's racist. If your character is designed to pander to a certain group, I would also argue then your character's pretty fucking racist. If your character is designed just to be of a group because you're going, isn't this a fucking cool idea? And they're meant to have good aspects, bad aspects, but some combination where it isn't they're all one way or the other, unless it is that this is meant to be your blue Boy Scout or your fucked up, really evil villain, then it's not racist as long as there's that balance of this is an actual character. I have problems when things become caricatures rather than characters.
Yeah.
And it isn't a caricature to have a hero named Aztec who happens to be the champion of Quetzalcoatl. You can make that a fucked up character, but there's nothing innate to that character that makes them fucked up.
I mean, first off, I don't think they did it. I mean, again, I don't know, but I don't think they did it to demean.
Oh, they didn't because he was a hero. You
Yeah.
don't make someone a hero if you're trying to demean them. You make them a hero because then people look up to them because holy shit, that's a hero.
Well, that's what I mean. Like, so it's I don't see it as like, uh, and again, the same people that'll sit there and be like, no, 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 they're doing it underhandedly. They're doing it as a dog whistle. So that way you can, and then it's like, oh, okay, well, let me show you this example of a different way of symbolism and underhandedness. Oh no, that's conspiracy theory. Shut the fuck up. You are just a fucking dumb
They
person.
made Black Thunder the president of the United States for fucking 4 terms. Or sorry, Black Vulcan. They made Black Vulcan. This is, again, a show that came out in the 70s. He was the president of the United States for 4 fucking terms.
Yeah,
In fact,
nonsense, dude.
sorry, for more than 4 fucking terms. Because according to the comic lore, he was the president of the United States from 2009 to 2017, then 2018 to 2021. He had a fuck ton of terms. But they'll try to say, oh, he is a racist character. No, he isn't. They made him the president of the United States. They made him a hero. They made him someone that people would look up to. Because that's what they wanted to do. They wanted a hero. Oh, but he was a black man. So? It's not like he came out just constantly talking jive and shucking and jiving. He was a character. He was a full character. He wasn't a racist caricature. And El Dorado, as weird as El Dorado was, because again, he was effectively a superpowered luchador. Which, by the way, have you guys ever seen a lot of old school Mexican cinema? The number of superpowered luchadors in Mexican cinema.
Oh shit, yeah.
What was it? Samson versus the Brides of Dracula? Was the Mexican superhero slash vampire movie from like the 60s?
Yeah, but
it was ridiculous and glorious.
Everybody was trying to hang out with Dracula. I mean, Abbott and Costello was hanging out with Dracula.
Yeah. And again, it was a hero. It was someone that people were meant to look up to. Which is why every time that I say the racist superhero of the week, it is with a bit of irony, because people will say that the Justice League was too white, and then they'll also say that every hero that wasn't white was racist, despite them being heroes, and them being heroes that you're obviously meant to look up to, and not just people of this group or that group is meant to look up to them. No, everyone is meant to look up to them.
Yeah. Rotten Corp says because they gave each character a theme, which was awesome. I kind of have to agree. That is kind of part of it. And even if it's a regional theme, like Moonshine Billy, who fucking is really good at making moonshine, but he's a hero from the Appalachians. Is like, okay, is it racist? I don't know, fucking. But
give me Moonshine Billy, who ends up having effectively, Asterix and Obelix, right, Adam?
Yeah,
Moonshine Billy with the potion, but it's moonshine,
and he has to get away from the law, who's trying to close down his potion. It's gummy bears, but Moonshine Billy.
Make it so that he has this entire theming of, he communes with the mountains or some shit, and he has a special type of moonshine that gives him superpowers for a period of time.
Okay, hold on, check it out.
That would be amazing.
Check it out. If we're working in an earlier time frame where it's like comic books, he'd be having like, he can sense the ground formation. He has expert tracking wilderness and stuff. But if we're doing it in a like an 80s Saturday morning cartoon show, and this is just because you said Asterix and Obelisk, and I was thinking of the cartoon, which, by the way, I have a Switch game of them, and holy shit, the animation is beautiful. But in
I had
terms
the
of
old school Game Gear one.
Oh, dude, I just found out that they had a whole bunch of these types of games for these characters.
Yep.
But for Moonshine Billy, if we're doing an 80s cartoon show, Saturday morning's cartoon show, he's gonna have animal friends.
Yeah. No, he won't have animal friends. He'll have the fucking Sasquatch.
Holy shit! Yeah, he'll have Sassy hanging out with him.
It'll be Moonshine Billy and Sassy's Adventures.
Dude, what the fuck? You see?
And he'd
You
be
just made
awesome because of it. If you play into it, and it's not playing into it to be insulting to that group, it's playing into it so that everyone is in on the joke.
Well, hold on. Think. Okay, when I just said '80s cartoon show, right?
Yep.
I'm just thinking back. I mean, I guess recently because I was watching a couple of you know, we ranked the best '80s cartoon shows intros and stuff. It, but just thinking about them too, a lot of times it was like, dude, they did them, and I guess you can say, oh, it was a soft or a soft racism, uh, that they were doing, just implying it, as a wink and a nod, and it's like, again, it goes into that, okay, that's dog whistle shit. But if you're gonna believe that, then I would really hope you believe all the other shit that's a wink and a nod that's also out there. Like that's my bit. Um, and then of course they, oh no, that's just too far. Okay, then shut up. You don't know what the fuck you're talking about. But in terms of like cartoon, like exactly what we said. Moonshine Bob, whatever, Moonshine Billy,
Moonshine Billy.
Moonshine Billy and Sassy. Um, yeah, it's not a, hey, we're trying to insult
It's not look at this
people from
dumb hick
Appalachia.
running around the
Yeah,
woods.
it's
It is
we crafted a cartoon character who is doing something and evading the law. It's like a Robin Hood of the Appalachian Mountains type of
yep.
thing.
We've
It's
taken a character that we take some of the characteristics of the people that he's supposed to originate from, and we dial them up a little bit. We don't make them insulting. We don't make him a caricature. We just dial them up a little bit, and then we give him his entire character as well. So it wouldn't just be that he's a moonshiner. No, that would be an aspect of his character, but he would have people that he cares about. He would have things that he wants to do, things that he wants to fix. And that's how you get your character, by expanding off of the base idea. The base idea is going to be a moonshiner who gets superpowers from his moonshine, just like the base idea behind Popeye was a sailor that gets really strong when he eats spinach.
yeah.
Popeye's more than just that, but that is the base idea that they built the rest of the character around.
To be fair, there's not really too much after that for Popeye, but that
No,
is
there
his
is,
character.
because the way that he interacts with Olive Oil, the way that he interacts with Bluto, because there's a bunch of times where Bluto and him aren't antagonistic until they end up both falling for Olive Oil.
Well, no, okay. The, if you go with the original cartoon bit, the comic strip bit, he
Yep.
was really just a one-off bit. And then the original animated shorts continued that type of simple, what, three-panel comic short. It wasn't until a little bit later when, like,
When he
United,
got the full length cartoons. Yeah.
yeah, when he started getting the full-length cartoons, that he started getting a bit of a more character. Um, but no, I agree with you, and that's the thing, like you can. I mean, yeah, you get the McGovern, and then that's it. But that's not every sailor is some dude who eats spinach and beats up people, right? Like
Yeah,
it's
not every sailor can eat spinach and become ridiculously strong. That
right.
is a Popeye special. And it's what makes Popeye stand out more so from those around him. But, like I said, that isn't all Popeye is, because Popeye has the characters that he cares about. And this goes with take every hero. Also, one of the funniest things to me is the fact that every time that someone tries to make a new hero just for black people, or to tell a uniquely black story and it becomes Afrofuturism, the part that always makes me go, the fuck, is the fact that every time that someone tries to write Afrofuturism, it ends up the exact same way. Do you know what they always do when it comes to Afrofuturism? What is their weapon of the future?
Hold on. Well, first, what is Afrofuturism? But
Afro
I'm gonna assume your the answer to your question is a spear.
Yes, so Afrofuturism means that it is sci-fi told from a African kind of origin. So it's what if Africa went super high tech? How would African culture form this high tech society? And every fucking time that it's Afrofuturism, they don't use guns, they don't use energy weapons. They chuck spears at each other. What the fuck is wrong with everyone writing Afrofuturism? That the most ridiculously advanced African weapon that they can think of is, what if they threw spears?
Okay, hold on. I'm gonna try and shorten a bit out, but okay, because I was watching, I think since yesterday, bits about more bits about the Shadeversity Pro AI artwork versus this guy named Sam uh Fana, something like that, um and his stance against it.
Mm-hmm.
And what you're talking about sounds exactly like what you would run into with this, is because you're not you're not recruiting people who are creative enough to think outside of what is what does Africa look like in the future? Oh, okay. Well, let's take Africa from 500 years ago and just make them all, with
Give them shinier metal weapons.
yeah, and Jetson boats. Now they used to be kayaks in the fucking water. Now they're kayaks in the air.
Yeah.
Like let's just do that. I think that's AI work in terms of what these people are discussing, um, and that's what you're gonna get. You're gonna get just pure bullshit as opposed to, well, no, what's realistic? These people are gonna want to fucking eventually, right? Not want to be floating in kayaks and shit.
Yeah.
And
What would happen with Africa becoming a super high tech society? They would develop firearms. Now, their firearms will probably look slightly different than our firearms because we had a bunch of different styles of firearms that then we selected ones that worked the best with how our military culture worked out. But there were a bunch of really fucking weird firearms early on. Like, are you familiar with the cheek stock firearms?
uh, not really.
So, you know how we have shoulder stocks on rifles, right?
Hmm.
One of the early versions of a long arm, rather than having a shoulder stock, it had a cheek stock. So it was something that would have to be made specifically for the person shooting it, and it was made to be molded to their cheek. So
Huh.
you'd have someone spend a lot of time carving it out so that when the wood was pressed up against their cheek, it fits snugly. And it allowed them how they had the uh, irons on those early guns. By having it welded against the cheek like that, you could look straight down the iron And it had a couple other different things set up to account for the recoil a bit more, but it was a different way of making a firearm. And I don't think that what they would do is they would have a spear that shoots plasma balls. I think that much like how when you look at how Western militaries, as they developed, have continued to go, we always keep a melee weapon. Our melee weapon tends to be a knife. I think that a sufficiently advanced African society, just like I think a sufficiently advanced future Western society, and this is something that you see a lot in different works, is if they can make a larger melee weapon that can collapse into a smaller package, especially if they can make one that can be different sizes, that would be something that you would see. So in some sci-fi, when it's a Western sci-fi, you'll see a knife that is this ridiculously futuristic knife that if someone concentrates on it, it can become a complete sword. Because a knife has its advantages. A sword has its advantages. One of the advantages of a knife is that it isn't cumbersome. So if you're talking about a secondary melee weapon, having a knife is kind of nice. But if you could get all the advantages of having a knife with the advantage of having a sword, the person that has a sword in close combat wins because they have the reach. So what would probably be the case is if you're talking about future tech, Afrofuturism, rather than them having their most advanced technique be throwing a spear that's a really high-tech spear. No, it would be they would have a weapon that could be a spear blade knife. Are you familiar with what a spear blade knife is, Adam?
Yep.
Okay. So, do you want to explain to anyone that doesn't know what a spear blade knife is?
Well, I'm hearing what you're saying, but I keep this Afro, whatever you said, it just kind of,
Afrofuturism.
yeah, it just doesn't make sense because even talking about a battle like you were talking because yeah, just with a spear and melee, it would make sense to have some sort of a melee weapon, especially if you're a futuristic, you'd have a plasma blade.
You might have a plasma blade, or where I was going with it is it would make complete sense to me if they, rather than going for plasma tech, they just had really advanced metals that they could have a resizable melee weapon. Make it so that it's a spear blade knife, which that's handy when you need a knife rather than anything longer. Really easy to carry a spear blade knife. But then if you had the ability to make it so that your handle could be knife handle or short spear handle or long spear handle, that gives you a lot more flexibility. So their tertiary weapon of their melee weapon, if you're talking about a futuristic society, I could very easily see it being this size-changing melee weapon that they would have probably an entire course on how to use it effectively. Because imagine trying to fight against someone that you start fighting and they have a knife, you have a knife. Okay, you're both at the same range. They back up a little bit. Suddenly they have a short spear, you have a knife. They're still able to fight you. You're at a massive disadvantage. They go for a thrust that they're just a little bit too far away for. Their short spear is now a long spear and your lungs perforated. This would be a fucking cool thing to have in a sci-fi universe. You would have things that they would have their primary weapon. And Cannibalistic Wizard brought up the staff weapons from Stargate, where it was a melee weapon that was also a ranged weapon. Sure, those work.
Yeah.
And Stargate was really good at Egyptian futurism, if you want to phrase it that way, because the entire aesthetic of the Goa'uld was sci-fi Egyptians. So there's ways of doing different cultural futurisms. And again, what that means is when you're talking Afrofuturism, it's African sci-fi. When you're talking Asian futurism, it's Asian culture leads to this sci-fi existence. Eurofuturism is European sci-fi. But there would be a whole bunch of different ways of doing it. But they would always have a ranged weapon that isn't just, oh, they have a super high-tech bow and arrow. Why the fuck would you have a super high-tech bow and arrow when you could have a minigun? Now, they would have different decorations. They would have different sort of military uniform.
I mean, that's kind of where I was going with the bit on the spear, because I mean, I guess going with current times, you look at Russia and Ukraine, they still dug in. They still built defenses. They still held a line. So yeah, you're right. They wouldn't just, oh, we're gonna have spears, or oh, we're Vikings, so we're still gonna have shields and long swords. It's like, well, no, you're still gonna build trenches, hold the line, and let the enemy come to you, because that's practical. You're not gonna charge them with spears and shit. And I was just thinking too, like with the future stuff, just how ridiculous the Wakanda thing was, where it's like, yeah, why didn't they just show all the Wakandan troops with, in the trenches with guns, and instead they used their capes as a shield and then held out spears. And even though they shot bolts out of their spears, it's like, but why? It doesn't make sense.
Another good example would be if you had,
you can't be futurist and still fight like with, hey, we're a future, but we're gonna do pikes and shot. So form a square, even though we're using plasma bolts and lightsaber spears. It's like, but why are you doing pike and shot?
Yep.
You have fucking laser weapons. Like, what the fuck's wrong with you people?
And you would have ceremonial weapons. So I could understand when they show like the Wakandan military.
Oh yeah, for parading and shit. Yeah,
parade.
Hey, the Swiss Guard is still there, but we're not sending the Swiss Guard out.
An honor guard, I could understand having them have a spear, because we went for swords since that was very common in European history, and that was seen as kind of the prestigious melee weapon. But in Africa, the spear was seen as prestigious in certain areas. So I could understand that. Also, I could understand them using different sorts of African swords and African axes and various other weapons, because different cultures have different weapons that they place a focus on.
Yeah.
So it should be shit like that is where you see that real strong cultural influence. Also, their uniforms. That would be where you see a strong cultural influence, because they would have slightly different cuts and slightly different styles. There's a lot of ways of having a very useful dress shirt for military service, or not dress shirt, but uniform shirt. Let me phrase it that way. Uniform shirt that is not the buttons, zipper, Velcro, whatever the fuck is straight down the center. You could have it be to the side. You could have it be to the other side. You could have it be on the side. You could have a bunch of different locations to make it look more like that culture's clothing. And different cultures might not have it cover your shoulders. Others would. Some might have it cover one shoulder, but not the other. There's a shit ton of ways of having this set up. But every time someone's doing Afrofuturism, how do they fight? They throw spears. The fuck is wrong with you?
Yeah, I don't like it. I think I still think that's just car and pores. Car. However that phrase is supposed to be. It's
Par for the course.
Par for the course. Yes. Wow, Adam. For this lazy ethic of writing. I mean, we just had a strike out in Hollywood for writers because they didn't want to be replaced with AI. But if this is the type of shit that we're coming up with, like, I'm sorry, you need to improve your craft if that's what you want to do. There really is no other way around it.
And Cannibalistic, to comment on what you said, so he brings up that in Crisis, the guy uses an alien supersuit, but also uses a bow and arrow for stealth, and then brings up Warframe, which uses bows and arrows as well as melee weapons. One of the things that both of those do fairly well is that shit collapses down, which is what I was saying. I can understand having a polearm if you're able to decide if that polearm is a polearm or a knife. If you can have it change size, makes perfect sense. Or if there's some reason in lore, which is where some sci-fi go horrendously wrong, and I hate when they do this, when they have a sci-fi setting where there's absolutely no reason that anyone should ever use a melee weapon because they have ridiculously advanced weapons and armor, that there's no advantage to a melee weapon versus a ranged weapon, then when you're in close quarters, sure, why the fuck are so many people charging into close quarters in order to get their melee weapon out? But if Dune does this, where Dune has the personal force field, and the personal force field is able to stop anything moving too quickly, but a knife doesn't move too quickly. So what's their main form of combat? They go in, they start shanking each other. That makes perfect fucking sense. Why that's a thing. There's other settings that do this as well. In the setting for what is it? It is Red Mars? Let me quickly double check the name of the series. I think it's Red Mars. But it's set in this futuristic society where humanity has been engineered into a bunch of different classes where the golds are on top. That's not the right series. Is it Red Rising? So, Red Rising, that's the name of the series. So, in this setting, humanity has been bioengineered into several different classes. And at the top are the golds, and the golds have the most ridiculous armor. Followed by the blacks have the second most ridiculous armor. And the silvers, they don't really have armor most of the time, but they can buy the most ridiculous armor because they're the financiers. But when it comes down to it, the golds often use swords, or the specialized sword that they have, because the armor the top end of armor is able to stop damn near every type of firearm that they have, short of like a ship laser. But their melee weapons are so ridiculously sharp that they're able to cut through the armor. So there's a reason why they use their melee weapons. So many sci-fi things don't have a reason that they're using their melee weapons. Like I said, you want to have a force field that stops bullets, and that's why they use melee weapons? Makes perfect sense in that setting. Go for it. But have a justification of why your army decides to go melee forward rather than, how about we just shoot them? And this is also something that Stargate did rather well. Because in Stargate, it became very obvious that the Goa'uld had fantastic armor against energy weapons. So it took several shots of energy weapons before Goa'uld armor broke. What they didn't have is they didn't have fantastic ballistic armor because they had it been so fucking long since the last time that they used ballistic weapons that they just didn't see a reason to make ballistic armor anymore. They made energy armor. So when they encountered humans with fucking P90s, P90s just pissed right through their armor. And the Goa'uld would drop, but a human shot by a Goa'uld weapon would just drop as well, because humans didn't have energy armor, Goa'uld didn't have ballistic armor. But it had been so long since a Goa'uld had to really think tactically, because their energy armor was good enough that most of the time, when they were going against other people that had energy armor, they would just go, well, fuck you, we can tank it and we can shoot you as we're tanking it.
Damn.
And yeah, exactly. There's things where it's when you have the sword so sharp it can split atoms. That's going to be a useful melee weapon when you're dealing with insane armor that you can't crack with your heaviest firearm. So yeah, you go in, you do melee. When you have an energy shield that is stopping anything above a certain speed, but you find out that a longbow arrow goes below their set speed, you start thunking arrows into the motherfucker. This is one of the things that I always, whenever there's a melee weapon that is a big, damaging melee weapon in a setting, I'm always going, why is this here? Is there a reason why this melee weapon should be in this sci-fi setting? There'll always be some melee weapon, so I never have a problem if there's this ridiculous type of knife. Yeah, absolutely. You want to have a knife. We want to have knives on our troops right now, because every now and then you're really fucking close to a motherfucker, your gun's kind of pinned in place, stab him. And that makes perfect sense. But there's other settings where it doesn't make sense. Why would you have someone who doesn't carry a gun, just carries a pole arm, unless there's something that protects him from firearms? Or blaster weapons, or insert weapon here. You need something.
Yeah, probably best to mix and match, right?
Yeah, you'd mix and match. And like I said, one of the best ways of doing this is you have a melee weapon that can resize. That would be really fucking dangerous to get in melee combat with. Because again, you're expecting someone to have a knife. So you dodge out of the range of the knife as they slash at you. Suddenly, that knife is now a sword and it's hacked into you. Or that knife is a spear and it's stabbed into you. Or that knife is a pole arm and it's hacked into you. There's a bunch of different ways that you can have futuristic melee weapons that make absolute sense. Resizing weapons is probably one of the best, because it just makes it so that you become an absolute son of a bitch to deal with in a fight. It's one of my favorite things when it comes to reading sci-fi, is figuring out why things are there. And there are some answers that aren't really good answers, but they're good answers in character. Like, if you have some evil motherfucker that carries around a fucked up melee weapon, not because it's particularly effective, and not because he's not worried about anything else, but because when he kills someone, he wants to torture them, that makes sense. And yeah, I get that it was a nuke joke, but it's also kind of a trope in a lot of sci-fi cannibalistic, where it's, this sword's so sharp it can cut an atom.
Yeah.
And it's just meant as a way of saying, this sword is fucking deadly. So give your melee weapons a reason to exist in your setting. And it makes sense. It's good. There's no problems when it comes to that. But the number of times when the melee weapon makes absolutely no fucking sense. Like I said, Afrofuturism so often becomes, how does this super advanced African culture fight its wars? They throw spears at each other. Who the fuck decided this? Why the fuck would anyone decide that the latest and greatest military strategy is throw a spear, even if it's a future spear? Why the fuck is it throw a spear? And if you want to have an interesting kind of way of depicting something, sure, if you want to have their man pads, where think like a RPG, if you want to have man pads or RPG like systems, and they're kind of shaped like a spear, sure, that works. But don't just have it be, well, we have a super advanced metal alloy that we make into spears and we throw those. Okay. Could you make a gun with that? Well, yeah. Could you attack someone from a longer distance away with the gun of that? Yeah. So why aren't you making fucking guns?
The crazy thing is that in actuality, it would be a firearm or a rocket launcher, or missile launcher or tank, but it would be named after something of tradition for that country. But for some reason, again,
you would
and like I
have
said,
the latest. You would have the latest and greatest of the short-barreled military rifles being named the Ikwala.
Yeah.
Because that's the Zulu short spear. So yeah, you would absolutely have that.
And even if you wanted to go so far, like you said earlier, in terms of the uniform, doing something like that where they might paint their face in a different way, where it's still camo, but it's reflecting of a warrior from the past. Again, it's weird to think that these people would go in there and be like, okay, we're gonna create this whole culture, and you even outside of the African setting, for any of them, that they go hard into, and again, kind of stereotypical view on these cultures, and then just, oh yeah, but it's all with lasers and plasma, and it's like, but we're supposed to look at that as being inclusive and the progressive way to look at it.
Yeah, and like I said, one of the justifications that you can give for why they use melee weapons, and this is used in some settings, is the people are so heavily armored that they just don't give a shit about what their enemy is using, and they use it as a way of breaking their enemy's morale. Because it would be one thing if you're shooting at someone and it isn't really doing anything to them and they're shooting back. It's another thing when they care so little about you shooting at them that they're running up and gutting you with a boar spear. There's another level of oh shit in that second one. So there are justifications. There are ways of doing it. Just for some fucking reason. So many of these different sorts of futurism don't do it. And instead what they do is they just have the dumbest things imaginable. How does this super advanced African culture fight? They throw spears. Fuck you.
This, like I said, it's just we're stumbling into a line of people who are in charge of these products, and they lack creativity. Um, I was like I said, I was watching a Adam and Stitch debate with Shade Versity and like I said, the Sam guy. Forget his last name. But they were discussing the AI art bit, and for me, I think that's where it falls into it goes into, if you don't have the creativity to think outside of just generic things, and you're just gonna type in a bunch of prompts and you know modify what you get the results in, is that's the future. Like that's what we're gonna get. Is we're gonna get, oh, okay, well, what's China look like in the future? Oh, it's all super Chinese aesthetics plus future stuff, like flying cars and rocket ships and shit. And it's like, well, why does it have to be that way? Like,
See, the thing that I can understand is when you're talking about future architecture, to my mind, future architecture, at least for certain cultures that aren't trying to get rid of their historic architectural styles, it will be elements of their ancient styles
oh, no, 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 no,
with
no, 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 no. I understand. I understand where you're going with that, but no, I mean, we're talking like super steeped into it, like as if they are pushing for just a traditionalist culture. And
okay.
again, think of what we were just talking about with the African future, but just think
Yep.
of it in any other culture. Like if it's Irish people, it's all like super Irish. Like you're seeing fucking Lord of the Dance people all over the place, and fucking leprechauns and shit. It's like
Yep.
it's retardedly fucking stereotypical, but
Because like
just
I said,
future.
I could imagine a future Chinese structure, like a future Chinese skyscraper, having a Chinese roof on it.
Well,
Because
yeah,
it's
in
that
some
nice little
instances,
callback to old styles.
yeah, but I mean, but if you look at China now, I mean, they have fucking drones hanging out their buildings, uh,
Yep.
doing performances. So I mean, it's like, yeah, you might see some buildings that have a traditionalist architecture style, but
But it wouldn't be every building, and
no,
it would be elements of the traditional style, not the entire thing. Just like how in Western societies, you'll have the occasional skyscraper that has a very traditional entry level
yeah,
when you look at it. But then when you start going higher and higher, the more glass and steel that you end up with.
yeah. Or if they build a new civic building. It looks, Roman
Yep.
or Greek, Hellenistic, right? So it's
Yep.
like it
Hellenic.
Hellenic. Uh, it follows a bit, but like I said, when I think of AI art and where it goes, I it, in my head it goes right to, yeah, you just push that lever all the way to the other end where it's oh, you want Chinese city in the future? Okay, yeah, it's gonna be nothing but Chinese castles and floating Chinese boats and uh, people with fucking working rice paddies on the outset, and then but there's also robots,
Yep.
and it's like, what the fuck are you doing? And again, that's going back to like the movies and stuff. That's where we go into that's what we're gonna get. They're checking boxes to make sure that they're getting what they want, and creativity be damned. You can still
Yep.
work this shit in. It's just you actually have to do the work.
Yeah,
People don't want
you
to do the work.
have to think about how would this work? How would this aspect be carried over? Like we were saying with the how would an African culture that became a futuristic society have that flavor to it? Well, their dress uniforms. When you look at Western dress uniforms, you'll see Marine Corps dress includes a Saracen sword, a Marmaluke sword on the hip. Because that's an element of the Marine Corps history. One of these cultures would probably have, if it's like, what would sci-fi Zulus look like? Well, their dress uniform would probably include an Ikwala. Because that is an element of their history. They wouldn't just be an African tribesman with a Zulu tribesman rather with a super advanced Ikwala. It would be that is there for their dress uniform. And again, if they're able to get collapsible melee weapons that are actually reliable, collapsible, resizable melee weapons, then yeah, they'd probably have an Ikwala blade knife that can become a full Ikwala. And that would just be how that shit functions. Just like how if we had the ability to make a knife that could resize into a sword, I can't really imagine very many service members who wouldn't go, "Fuck yeah, give me the sword. I want the knife sword. That sounds fucking awesome." Because we like shit like that. Humans, as a people, like shit like, okay, I can have a useful small weapon that then can also become big ass, awesome looking weapon. Sign me up, motherfucker. Sign me up. But it seems like that has somewhat hit its natural end. Would you agree? Or do you have anything that you want to add to that conversation?
Oh no, no. Look, it's reaches den. Yeah.
Because there is one thing that I wanted to do, see if I could explain something that so many people have been getting wrong, and I want
Oh,
to see if I can explain it in a way that makes sense to you and everyone watching along.
all right. Let's give it a shot.
So, recently, I've seen a lot of people make claims about what inflation and deflation are and why things are more expensive and why things are the way that they are. And they seem to always get shit wrong. Like, I've heard people say that inflation is when it takes more money to buy something. Kind of, but not really. And I've seen people say absolutely insane shit like inflation has absolutely nothing to do with the money supply. That's patently wrong. But it's shit that people have been talking about. So I made a quick and dirty force diagram. Are you familiar with force diagrams at all, Adam?
I think this is the first time I've heard of it.
So force here, let me show this image on stream. So force diagrams are a depiction of all the different forces acting upon an object. So if you make a force diagram, only rather than force diagrams are used in physics. So if this was a physics, you'd have one of the arrows pointing one direction, friction, another one pointing as like a push or engine or something along those lines. You'd have gravity and the opposite force of the ground pushing up on an object, showing which direction forces are going and how the forces are interacting with each other. So this is just a dollar, hence the reason why it has a dollar sign. If it moves to the back end, that means that for a unit of cash, you can get more than before. If it goes to the right, then you can buy less for that same unit of cash. That part makes sense?
Yep.
So there's two things that make it so that your money is more valuable, aka it can buy more. One thing is that you can have deflation, which means that the money supply has decreased. If there's less money circulating, then all the money that remains is worth more than it was worth prior to that. That makes sense?
Mm-hmm.
Another thing that drives down prices is a market surplus. The more shit there is to buy, the less that shit costs. So if I have a one-of-a-kind object that people want to have, so demand is high, one-of-a-kind object, that's going to cost a hell of a lot. If there's hundreds of this object, it will cost far less. If there's thousands of it, it will cost even less. If there's millions of it, it'll cost even less. So that's what market supply means. So both deflation and market supply push the dollar so that it is worth more. Everyone on board with that?
So far, so good.
Then on the opposite side, you have inflation, which is an increase in money supply. So you print more money. All the money that is in circulation is worth less because the supply of money has gone up. Just like how market surplus, the more objects there are that can be sold, the less it costs to buy that object. Same thing with inflation. The more cash there is in circulation, the less that cash is worth. And then you have market deficit, which, just like how I explained, 1 to 100 to 1,000 to 1,000,000 of the supply of items. If you take something that has 1,000,000 units and then it goes down to 1,000 units next year, it's going to cost more money to get that 1,000 units. If it goes down to 50 units, it's going to cost more. If it goes down to 1 unit, it's going to cost a fuck ton. You see this with a lot. You're a big fan of retro gaming, Adam. So you've seen this with game consoles before, right?
What do you mean?
So when a game console first comes out and they haven't made enough in order to meet demand, the game console is fairly expensive, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then when that game console is about to be phased out, so they have the highest supply of that game console, the price starts to tank. Correct?
At the end of its life?
At the end of its life. So the next generation has already been announced. The So think the PS4 right when the PS5 first comes out. The price of the PS4 tanks. The PS5 price is high, but the PS4 starts to decrease.
Well, I mean, you'll see some sales on it for sure, but I mean, that's true for anything.
Yep.
A car comes out, and a car that came out 5 years later or earlier is cheaper than a car that came out recently. So
Yep. But then as time goes on, so you'll have it start to dip when it's first getting phased out. A year after it first gets phased out, there's still pretty much everyone that was sold is still in circulation, and demand has shrunk a hell of a lot, so the price dips down further. But then when you get to a certain amount of time out, if you're trying to buy a mint condition Super Nintendo today, not a remake, but one of the originals, it costs a lot more now than it did a couple years after it first got phased out, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the reason for that is the number of units that meet that criteria has vastly diminished. So as the supply of something goes down, the price that it's able to command goes up. So a market deficit, meaning that there's fewer goods for you to buy, causes the money that is currently in circulation to be worth less than it was worth otherwise. That make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So depending on how these four forces play out, you can have different combinations and different magnitudes. So magnitude means the degree to which it's affecting. So a high magnitude means that it is greatly affecting. A low magnitude means that it is not strongly affecting. And then when you go, so the closer to zero, the lower the effect. The closer to positive infinity, the greater the effect in the direction that it's moving. The closer to negative infinity, the greater the effect in the opposite direction. That makes sense?
Yep.
So if you have deflation occurring at the same time as you have a market deficit, you can have the price of an object remain exactly the same. If the deflation is exceeding the magnitude of the deficit, then your money will become worth more. If the market deficit is exceeding, the magnitude of the market deficit is exceeding the magnitude of the deflation, your money gets worth less, even though there's more money in circulation. That makes sense?
Sure.
So when people are talking about why things are becoming more expensive, they seem to always want to focus in on one or the other, or they'll point to a time when, well, we printed off a hell of a lot of money at this point, but the value of that money didn't really decrease, not paying attention to the fact that that inflationary period also happened during a market surplus, which then caused the price to remain static or mostly static. There's a bunch of different there's these four factors that you have to look into in order to figure out why something is becoming as expensive or as cheap as it is. And each one plays in. Each one has its own magnitude, and you have to determine, okay, which one is the main driver. This is just something that has been driving me crazy because, like I said, I keep on hearing people talk about inflation and deflation, and they're saying that it is just the price of things. And no, it isn't the price of things. It is one of the factors that affects the price of things. So Chat, did that make any sense to you guys? Because, like I said, I wanted to see if I can explain this in a way that makes sense to Adam as well as you guys.
Oh, I understand your words, sir. But you know me, dude. I am on a different understanding than a lot of you, and I will continue to go with yeah.
It's the
It's all
reptilians making the price change.
yes, sure. It is the reptilians.
I'm just taking the
I
piss out
know.
of you.
As we continue to scroll through this time period, and as we continue to see how corrupt our system is, I mean, you explaining it, that's good and all, but it's still not a workable system. And whether they want to blame X, Y, or Z, the fact remains that the system was designed to do that. So I mean, we
Well,
are
it
where we're supposed to
wasn't.
be. Are
It wasn't designed to do that. It is being
and
used
again,
to do
that's
that.
okay.
There's a
That's where
difference.
we go to agree to disagree. And
Okay,
I
but
mean,
yeah, I'd say that
I
it's
get what you're saying, and I hope the people listening understand. But yeah, no, yeah, that's
yeah,
um,
I'd say that it's being used to do that because there's ways of making the system so that it doesn't have the outcome that we're currently having. There's ways of ensuring that it does. One of the reasons why this bit right after the pandemic was so fucked for a good number of us when it came to things being more expensive was we had inflation and we had a market deficit, both of those pushing things to be more expensive. And we had a
mm,
market deficit because we went, hey, the economy shut down, which meant that shit wasn't being made. When shit isn't made, that means that there's less of it.
yeah. But see, that's just a repeat of times where that happened before. So I mean, like I said,
Oh yeah.
that's why I said this. This is not a one time deal. This is not a this is
Oh,
why. No,
it's absolutely not a one-time
this
deal.
has been
It is.
happening for a while, a long while, decades long while. So it's for me, like I said, I understand. We may disagree on some aspects of it, but no, I understand completely. But I do sincerely hope people in the audience will catch wind of this and start looking into it because it is. I mean, it affects you whether you
Yep.
know it or not. It really does.
And we
Even if
would both, at the very least, agree that there are absolutely time periods where people are fucking this absolutely to death in the worst ways for everyone else.
you mean taking advantage of it?
Taking advantage of it, or just they will, like during the pandemic, they closed down the vast majority of, or they closed down, not quite the vast majority, they closed down a shit ton of businesses, which made it so that there were fewer goods moving around the economy, while they also printed off money, creating a massive reduction in how much that money was worth. And then there's other times when there'll be a market surplus hits, and then they'll cut the flow of money, causing money to be worth a hell of a lot more. That happens less often, but there's times when people have the ability to kind of control things by deciding to print more money or print less money, and they make the absolute worst decision. And a chunk of those times, at the very least, it is entirely intentional that they're making the absolute worst decision.
So, do you want to borrow my tinfoil hat, or
No, I don't think that's even tinfoil. I think that that's something that the only way that that wouldn't be the case is if the people who have the ability to make those decisions have absolutely no knowledge about how these four things interact.
Well, once upon a time, that's what people would tell you. Was I sent a package through the mail and it got sent to Timbuktu, so how can I believe that the government is capable enough of doing? Well, they are. They've been doing it. It's
See, I think the one thing that you and I disagree on is how capable they are, because I think a good chunk of it is entirely ineptitude. I think that there is a sizable portion that is not ineptitude, but a good chunk of it's just ineptitude.
and I hate to bring up actors again, but yeah, never trust an actor, as they're always part of this game. Uh, and that's one of the benefits is that they're capable of making you believe that they are inept. I mean,
Oh yeah,
shit. I mean, and that's look, that's my view. And to be
yep,
honest, a lot of what you said, I agree with it. So I mean,
yeah. Like I've said before, there's a certain point where it beggars imagination that someone would be that dim. So it crosses over the point where I can't really just extend the benefit of the doubt. A good example of this is Janet Yellen. Janet Yellen, when she was saying that the printing more money doesn't cause inflation, I can't imagine a world where she does not know what inflation is.
well, hold on, wait, Janet Yellen, isn't she the one who just recently said that America is capable of fighting two wars at the same time?
I'm not sure if she did. I don't know why she would speak to wars.
I think it was in terms of supporting Israel.
Uh, yeah, I'm not sure why she was talking to that end, because that wouldn't really be her side of things to.
Sanguine. Okay, I really don't like to have to play around this, but like we are dealing with a whole host of evil people in power right now. So I mean, like I know I may have mixed up her name, but let's not put it too far out of balance to say that yeah, some of these people are fucking
Oh,
this.
I'm not saying that no one said that. I'm saying that I don't know why anyone would even ask her that question specifically, because
These because they're all fucking questioned on a lot of these things. I mean, it's pretty much, hey, are, what team are you on at this point? That's what I mean. That's it's odd. Why is Blinken going to Iraq? This is we are in odd times, my friend.
we
So
absolutely are. It's the old thing of interesting times.
yeah, and so that's why I don't put anything past it. You know, uh, but yeah, no, and that's why when you're talking about how things are changing, yeah, well, that has to be somebody doing that. And it's not an ebb and flow, and we're all feeling it. Especially when you said, like you said, the with the prices that we're paying, you know. And I think that's when people start really feeling it. Gas prices was one thing, and I thought it would break when eggs were getting super expensive.
Like I said, when it came to that, it was entirely we had market deficit, because turns out when you try to turn off an economy, it doesn't produce things,
Yep.
and you
Well,
can't just turn it on and suddenly have everything that would have been produced up to that point. It
yeah.
takes time for it to cycle back up.
Well, around that time as well, there was some pandemic going around with chicken coops. So I
Oh
mean,
yeah, with different processing plants for meat and shit like that bursting into flames.
and I can't wait to see what the rippling effect will be with all of the derailments and food processing plants that went down during the end of the summer. So I mean, like I said, dude,
Mm-hmm.
this is as much as I'd like to just, oh yeah, this is all happenstance that is normal. It's like, come on, dude, things are ramp. There was apparently, I think in Minnesota it was, where a whole highway had to close down because people started shooting up people on the fucking highway. Like,
Oh, I haven't heard about that,
yeah, dude,
which is strange because I'm living in Minnesota. And normally, that type of shit, they send an alarm.
I wish I had saved the tweet, but it was one of those breaking alarm things. And like I said, I'm yeah, I try to be as optimistic as possible, but I also I can't personally, sit there and turn a blind eye to the goings ons of the goings ons in the world. That's just
Like I said, to my mind, it's a combination of malicious actors and idiots.
yeah.
And the worst of all, maliciously evil idiots.
Well, yeah, that's the worst. No, I mean,
Because they're energetically wrong.
damn.
And they're normally the ones that actually do the things.
As long as they don't disturb Thanksgiving, because I am looking forward to that.
Yep. And when it gets nearer to Thanksgiving, I'll have to do the actual story of Thanksgiving again. Because it's something that I think is important for people to know. And every year there's the attack on Thanksgiving. And it's bullshit. Also, it's really fucked up when you know the actual story of Thanksgiving and how Thanksgiving started. Because the normal Thanksgiving story that everyone's told is a quasi myth. It's a amalgamation of stories. And then there's the actual story of how it started. And then people are attacking it. And I think a fair number of those people are attacking it maliciously. Because the actual story is rather important. But that'll be for another night.
I would agree on that, and I would like to hear that story.
Yep.
Um, I mean, I have a idea of where you're going with it, but I
Yeah.
mean, to be honest, especially going with that, um, I think that's why, in terms of Thanksgiving, I always enjoy talking about the food aspect because, I mean, granted, if I'm thinking about what you're talking about in terms of its start, um, it was a bonding
Yep.
aspect, not in the way of the original, but in terms of food, that comes from the original, um, to a
Well,
degree, I
the
guess.
actual origin included the food, and I would argue that the myth, it was, they specifically sought out something to include food because getting around a table and eating has always been a matter of unification.
Yeah,
It's always been something that it is hard to be pissed off at someone when you're having a really good meal.
and you're sitting right next to them.
Yeah. When you're having a really good meal and you're all thinking about things that you're happy about and what unites you, it becomes really hard to be looking at the person next to you and go, man, fuck this guy. Because you're just primed by the food, the drink, and the reminiscent to think, okay, yeah, we have our differences, but He's a good guy. He's wrong in this, that, and the other, but he's a good guy.
And I like that about. I mean, that's the main thing I like about it is just kind of thinking about the different types of food people bring up. Like, oh, I like to eat this, and I like to bring this, and it's like, dude, that's fucking awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Also,
As I've
I
said
gotta eat some turkey and deviled eggs this Thanksgiving.
Nice. As I've said before, there's a certain magic about sharing food and stories.
Oh yeah.
And that's one of the major reasons why pretty much everyone's favorite holidays includes some element of food and storytelling. It kind of speaks to everyone. Doesn't matter the culture. It just speaks to everyone. But it is getting near the 30 mark. Shall we wrap up, or do you have a topic that you wanted to broach?
Was there a topic I wanted to broach? And honestly, none that I can think of. I think we pretty much talked.
Had a good conversation, a good ramble, talking about whatever the fuck we wanted.
Yeah, I think because I did have stuff I wanted to talk about, and I think we covered it.
Copy that.
I mean, yeah, I feel like we did have a good conversation. I hope people in the chat enjoyed, and people who watch it in the future enjoy it. But yeah, no, thank you for inviting me, sir. I had a fun time.
Always good having you. So do you have any parting words?
Well, first, isn't it Veterans Day today? No, it's the Marine's birthday.
Yeah.
Marine's birthday.
Oh, you heard about that. That's one thing that I forgot to mention.
What's that?
Did you hear that there was a number of places that were told that they weren't allowed to celebrate the Marine Corps Ball?
Yeah, I heard that they canceled the ball. I didn't know it was multiple places. I thought it was just an all-around thing.
Let me quickly double check because I can't remember whether it was a national cancellation or whether it was the specific locations. Let me quickly double check. It's supposed to take place now today was when it was supposed to take place because it takes place on November 11th.
Oh.
And
oh yeah, 11/11.
Let me see.
Armistice Day.
One would figure that would be fairly big news, but when you type it in, it is not even listed at the moment. Yep, so Marine Corps Times just found it. Middle East focused Marine Command cancels birthday ball. The Marine Corps component of U.S. Central Command canceled its annual birthday ball, citing unforeseen operational commitments. The Marine Corps Forces CENTCOM birthday ball had been slated for November 16th as a celebration of the Marine Corps' November 10th birthday. So it was the 10th was the birthday. A lot of places do the 11th. CENTCOM was doing the 16th. According to a message by Major General Chris McPhillips. Because of the uncertain situation, The Marsent Command wants to avoid a last-minute cancellation that would burden Marines, families, veterans, and members of the community with trying to recoup money from ticket sales, reservations, etc. Marine spokesman Captain Joe Wright told Marine Corps Times via email on Wednesday. Wright attributed the tough decision to cancel the ball to dynamic and uncertain security environment in the CENTCOM area of responsibility. The command counts 21 countries in the Middle East and surrounding region in its area of responsibility, but is located at MacDill Air Force Base, Florida, just south of Tampa. So yeah, CENTCOM canceled their Marine Corps balls.
Well, there you go.
But you were saying, sorry.
Right. Wait, we doing close ups?
Parting words.
Oh, parting words. Oh, okay. Thank you again for letting me join. And I want to say, make sure you all hit that like and subscribe button. And I love y'all. God bless. And good night, Dovey.
And I'll sign off with my standard of, if you're passionate about something, make sure that you devour it. Don't let it devour you. And with that, have a good night, all. The zoo is closed. Bye. Let me click this.